Hello and welcome to the second module of Java Basics course. So actually what we are going to be discussing today is methods, how can we use them, what are the return values of methods, and actually how can we control the flow of our programs, meaning we'll learn about if statements, we'll learn about loops, how to use them, and what are the best ways to utilize them in our code. So we already have used methods in the past, in the previous module, but now let's do a reminder about what the methods actually are. In order to do that, I will just go ahead and create a new Java class that will serve as our sandbox and a playground. So, first of all, what is a method? Method is actually a piece of code that written once can be reused anywhere in the program. So this is something that we want to use to make sure that we do not make any repetitions, everything is clear, and we have tools at our disposal to do the tasks that we want. And what is a method comprised of? So first of all, we always create a method within a class. We cannot create a method not in a class, it always needs to be in a class in Java. Second of all, to write a method, first we need a method signature and then the method body. So let's talk about the method signature and what it is comprised of. First we have the access modifier. It can be public, it can be private, it can be protected, or there can be no at all, which would be default. We talked about access modifiers and the differences between those in previous videos. Then we've got the return value of the method, meaning what type will be data after the operations in the method have been finished. So that would be public. In this example, let's say we want to create a method that adds up two numbers. So those will be whole numbers. And whole numbers are actually stored in an int type of value. So this will be public int, and then we need to call our method something. The naming of a method is very, very important because we want to make sure that the method is actually accurately described about the things that we want it to do. And then what we want to do is to make it so that we know exactly what is meant to happen when this method is called. So for us, it will be sum two numbers. And then we open and close parentheses, where we just put information about what is the input that we want to give to this method. In this example, we want to use two numbers to sum them up. So in order to do that, it will be two whole numbers, so int a and int b, and then I open and close curly brackets. So right now, what is left for me to do is to write down the code that will actually sum up a and b and return the value. So let's create a variable that will hold sum, and the value of this variable called sum will be a plus b. So yeah, pretty straightforward. So right now, in this variable called sum, we will get the sum of those two numbers. And now, since our method has a return type over here, so the second after the public statement, we need to return the value. In order to do that, we need to use the keyword that is return, and then we need to specify what exactly do we want to return, and in our case it will be sum, so the result of the addition. So to summarize, what we need to do to create a method is first declare the access modifier, declare the type that we want it to be returned, the name of the method, arguments of the method within parentheses, and then in the curly brackets we need to actually write down the code that will do what we want to have out of the method. And then at the end of it, we need to use our return statement to let Java know what actually is it that we want to return. So yeah, with that being said, now that we have a method that sums up two numbers, let's see how to call it, right? Because we have been calling methods in the past, but let's also do a reminder. Since this is not a static element, then it is going to be only available from the context of an object. So we need to create an object before we are able to use the method sum2numbers. So in order to do that, I go to main, so our entry point in the code that we use to run any code in Java. So right now what I need to do is to create calculator object out of calculator class. So first we use the calculator with capital letter. Then we give a name to our object and use the default constructor that is available for calculator. And right now I can call our method of sum2numbers, and let's say we want to sum up 3 and 5. So we use the name of the object that we have created, and then after a dot we call out the method's name and give proper inputs. So right now we can run the code and let's see what does it return to us. Okay, process finished, right? But we do not get anything displayed until we perform a printing operation. So we need to call an already known method called systemoutprintln, which will print out anything that is put into parentheses of this method. So let me just cut and paste this one. And right now, if I print this, yeah, I get the value 8. So that's very nice. So that's what happens when we call a method and we can actually pass the argument to another method. This, in Java understanding, after this has been executed, this is not really object calc sum2numbers 3, 5, right? It's actually number 8, as we can see here at the bottom. To demonstrate this, let me just create a variable that will be storing information about the summing operation of 1 and 2. And right now I can just go ahead and print out the variable and I should get number 3. And I do. So in other words, once I do this, once the operation is finished, since this is returning an int, I know that I can expect a number, and according to the operations within the body of a method, so within those curly brackets, I know that this method will result in a number, and this will actually sum up those two numbers, and I can assign it to other variables as well to store the information for later use if needed. That's a first example. Let's talk about a second one, because right now we've got int a and b, but let's create a new class that will serve us as a utility tool to count, to first get the name from the user and return the amount of characters that are in the name. So let's call our new class nameLengthChecker, and let's think for a little while, what do we need to do? First of all, we need to create a method, yes, of course, that is going to be public, that is going to be returning the amount of characters, so it will be int. Will it need any arguments? Since we are going to be getting the information from the user, we really won't need to get any arguments in the method itself. We'll be getting it from the user. So yeah. So to translate this into code, it will be a public method that returns a whole number, so an int. Let's call the method nameLengthCheck, and then no arguments will be needed. And for now, let's just return 0. We'll change this later on. So in order to get information from the user about the name, we first need a scanner to allow the user to write down anything in the console. So let's create a scanner, call it sc equals new scanner system.in, and this is a way to create an object of a scanner class that will allow us to pull the data from the end user. So now let's write down communication to our end user what is expected. So please input your name. And then we are going to be creating a new variable for string, because of course a name is going to be a text, so we want to have it as a string. And then we are going to be using sc.next line. And what we want to do now, since we already got the name, we want to return name.length. So to sum it up, we create a scanner, we print out to our end user that we want to get his or her name. Then we create a variable out of user input, and then we return the name length. So the number of characters that are there in the name itself. But we can notice one thing, that is the fact that there are no fields in the nameLengthChecker class, meaning that the method will not change in time, or rather due to the state of the class, meaning that we can do something like this and call the method static. And this means that now the owner of the method is not an object created out of this class, but rather the class itself. So we can use it without the object initiation. So let's do that and let's see how this is going to perform. Let me just delete all these codes so that we only have what we want. And let's use nameLengthChecker dot nameLengthCheck and call the method. So yeah, we've got please input your name that we have written down over here. So this is our system out println. And now we are waiting for input from the end user. So let's call the name DevLaunch. And yeah, now we are returning name.length, but we are not printing it, right? So in order to see the length of our name, we need to, for example, assign a variable to be able to see and use later on the name length. And then we can just print it out. We can, of course, directly move the nameLengthChecker.nameLengthCheck into the system out println parentheses to be sure that we can also have it, but still it is more readable at this point in time to use a variable in the meantime, but you do not need to do this. It is also working this way. So let's run main. Please input your name. And yeah, it has 9 characters. So yeah, it works very, very nicely. I'm very satisfied with it. So this would actually be it for the part about the methods and the return types and what can we do with them. And to do a short summary, first of all, methods are always created within a scope of a class, no matter if it's a normal method or a static method. A method declaration is composed out of access modifier, return type, name of the method, and then we've got the arguments of the method. Within the curly brackets, then we put the body of a method, so actually all the logic that is there to actually get the result that we want. Then we use the return keyword to create a return statement where we declare what we want to return and use them later on. So this method is not static, meaning that if I want to use it, I would need to create an object out of calculator class. But if we go into nameLengthChecker, this method is static, meaning that I can use it without creating any sort of object. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Please head on to the file provided with this video, and then at the bottom of it, or rather after the using methods to get values part, go into the task section, and there you will find 2 exercises for you to solidify the knowledge that you have gathered today. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.